Rick looks pretty serious about killing Jim Hollinger, the man who he claims killed his father, after the White Lotus Season 3, Episode 6, Denials. Although Jim has yet to appear on screen in the White Lotus Season 3, Episode 6 ends with Rick and his adventurous friend Frank, played by Sam Rockwell, arriving at his and Sritala's mansion in Bangkok. Jim and Sritala are the co-owners of the White Lotus Thai Resort, which still has its own murder mystery brewing heading into the final 2 episodes of the White Lotus Season 3. After Frank supplied Rick with a handgun before their wild conversation in the White Lotus Season 3, Episode 5, Rick convinced Sritala to meet at her house, where she claimed that her husband was having some health issues. Rick posed as a Hollywood producer back at the White Lotus Thai Resort and lied about wanting to put Sritala, who did some acting back in her day, in a major Hollywood production. Frank tags along as the big-shot Hollywood director who wants to experience Sritala in her own habitat to see if she's the right fit for his next film that doesn't exist. Rick seemingly is contemplating killing Jim in the White Lotus. Rick's plan to get to Jim worked, but is he a killer? Rick, Walton Goggins, at a bar in the White Lotus Season 3 EP5. Image via Max. Despite Rick telling Chelsea that he only wants to talk to Jim Hollinger, who Scott Glenn will play in future episodes of the White Lotus Season 3, it's clearer than ever that he may actually go through with killing him. Getting the gun from Frank shows that he means business, or at the very least, will use the threat of violence to get an honest conversation out of Jim. There is still so much to learn about Rick and his father, so hopefully Jim can fill in the blanks. Rick is certainly mysterious and surprisingly wise, which raises questions about whether he has it in him to kill. Vengeance is a powerful motivator, and Rick has successfully manipulated Sritala by appealing to her self-serving dreams of stardom to get close to Jim. He's come this far and has even gotten Frank involved, so everything is set up for him to quite literally make a killing. The most interesting part of his story heading into the White Lotus Season 3, Episode 7 is whether he actually knows the whole truth about his father. Jim may have had a good reason for killing him or may not have even killed him at all. I suspect there will be some type of earth-shattering twist that may enlighten Rick to a greater truth about his dad. Rick probably won't kill Jim in the White Lotus Season 3. Rick may learn the truth about his father or walk into a trap. Rick, Walton Goggins, lost in thought with the lights of Bangkok in the background in the White Lotus Season 3 EP5. Image via Max. Walton Goggins' Rick is a perfect blend of reserved and unpredictable, which makes it difficult to know what he will end up doing if he does pull his gun out on Jim. Frank will likely also be carrying a gun for backup, while Sritala may not be as easily manipulated as she seems. Perhaps Sritala knows exactly who Rick is, especially considering that, as the co-owner of the resort, she could have easily had Fabian look into his true identity and background, meaning that Rick and Frank are actually walking into a trap. There are all sorts of question marks around Jim, but what he says to Rick may determine whether he lives or dies. Based on the multiple deaths in the White Lotus Season 2, Season 3 could be setting up more than the one dead body scene floating in the water in the Episode 1 teaser. After Timothy's close call and Greg finding out about Chloe and Saxon, the White Lotus Season 3 could result in more character deaths than ever before. With Frank in the room, things could become very conversational, even unexpectedly spiritual, between Rick and Jim. Out of them all, Sritala is actually the biggest wildcard. She could convince Rick and Frank to disarm themselves only to pull out a weapon of her own. The White Lotus could still have a twist with Rick and the husband. One fan theory speculates that Jim is actually Rick's father. Knowing the White Lotus, Rick's revenge story arc will likely not end as straightforwardly as it had begun. Rick killing Jim would probably also require him to kill Sritala and leave his life with Chelsea behind. That said, he and Frank have a shady past that has yet to be revealed, hinting that Rick may already know how to get away with murder. It could be more satisfying if there were a non-violent twist, even something like Jim being Rick's father. Since the White Lotus Season 3, Episode 7 is titled Killer Instincts, the floating dead body and a potential killer at the resort should be revealed as well.